Okay, so let's do just some examples of the gravity model, and we'll use this and we'll try to figure out which one of these three countries is an anomaly. Okay, so I've just come up with, or three different pairs of countries, I should say, not three different countries. Okay, so I've just come up with examples. These numbers reflect nothing about the real world. I'm just making them up. We're going to assume that a equals 3, and we're also going to assume that a, b, and c all equal 1, lowercase a, and lowercase b, and lowercase c. So there's no exponents to deal with. Okay, so let's just use the gravity model, and we will figure out what the predicted values are, and then we'll compare them to actual numbers that we could find if we looked up the statistics online somewhere. Okay, so you can pause the video here and go through these things one at a time if you would like. So I would suggest pausing it, solving, and then restarting again with once I've put these answers in. Okay, so pause now. Okay, so hopefully you've had enough time to work through these things. So if you work through this here with an a equals 3, remember the gravity model is Tij is equal to a times y sub I times y sub j, all divided by dij. Okay, so we're going to take 3 times 600 times 800, and we're going to divide by 200. And that will give us a predicted value of 7,200. Okay, which is pretty close to 7,500. Okay, so nothing too big about that one. Okay, let's do scenario number 2 between two other countries who are closer and have different GDPs. Okay, so 3 times 700 times 400 divided by 100. That is going to be equal to 8,400, okay, which is not too far off from this 7,800. It's only off by 600, which is not too bad. It's not particularly great, certainly not as good as being within 300, but it's still not terrible. And let's do the last one. So 3 times 500 times 700 divided by 50. All right, well, that gets us a predicted value of 21,000, but the actual value is only 5,000. Okay, so which one of these three scenarios, 1, 2, or 3, would be the anomaly? Right, we would say 3 because look, the model predicts that there should be 21,000 units of trade or $21,000 worth of trade occurring between these two countries, and there's only 5,000 done. Okay, so what are some possible explanations of this? Well, maybe these two countries are extremely different in terms of their cultures, and they detest one another. Maybe there is something about a very high tariff. So maybe one of these countries is Nepal, or even worse, it has an even higher tariff rate than Nepal. Maybe there's some ridiculous bureaucracy about importing goods into the country. So maybe there's no tariff, but it's incredibly difficult to get licenses or approval or permits to bring things in. Right? There's all kinds of explanations that we can come up with. Any one of them or combinations of them are correct. So that would be this case here. If we were trade scholars, if we were working on international trade, this scenario 3 here, after we applied the gravity model, would be something that we would want to study much more closely. Okay, so we would go in and we'd say, okay, this scenario is interesting. Let's go in there and see if we can figure out why there's such a disjoint between what we predict will happen and what does happen. All right, so we can use the gravity model to do all kinds of fun stuff. Right, we can look into this and identify potential sources for further study. Okay, so now let's think of another puzzle. Right, so why does the U.S. want to develop other countries? Okay, so we're going to set aside epistemic and incentive problems, and we're just going to ask the question, so the U.S. is all currently engaged in lots of foreign aid programs, right, where we're going around the world evidently trying to help other people. Whether or not we should is a separate question, one that lies outside the boundaries of this class. But there's a great book. Let me go grab it. There's a great book by one of my professors called Doing Bad by Doing Good by Christopher Coyne, Why Humanitarian Action Fails. It is a fantastic book. He did a great job documenting all the cases of the U.S. going in and trying to do humanitarian efforts and whether or not they worked. Okay, so it's a great book. Highly recommend it. I'll put a link to it in the description below so you can go buy it there. Okay, so but why do we do this? Let's use the gravity model to explain it. Okay, so remember, and I'm going to use US instead of one of the Y's. So trade between two countries is equal to A times, we'll call it USY. All right, this is the United States GDP times other countries' GDP divided by their distance. Okay, so if the U.S. can help develop country J, right? If we can help develop country J, what happens to the volume of trade between the U.S. and country J? Well, so the goal of development, right, to put it bluntly and to really just boil it down to one statement, is to increase J's GDP. Right? We want country J to be more productive, right? Well, if country J's GDP increases, then the volume of trade between the US and country J increases, which makes us wealthier because now we're trading, we have another trade partner. Okay, so one reason is that so we can have more trading partners. Right? Okay, so that would be one potential reason why the U.S. Would want to help develop other countries. Again, whether or not we should is a completely separate question that lies outside the boundaries of economics and is not something that we will be talking about in this class, though you can certainly go check out Doing Bad by Doing Good by Chris Coyne for answers on what happens when we actually do these things.